And now, more Pro Wrestling Weekly with your host, Fearon.
Sit down, shut up, and listen up!
Welcome back to Pro Wrestling Weekly here on 1490 WBCB and online at WBCB1490.com. Fearon here with you, at least in recorded form, as I'm currently on vacation. But I'll be back live in studio next week, and we've got a jam-packed show for you. Of course, we'll go over all the results to SummerSlam. And since I'm vacationing north of the border, I want to know, who is your favorite Canadian wrestler? Looking back to Raw, Paul Heyman promoting the SummerSlam main event and promoting Brock Lesnar as only he can. And, of course, taking some jabs at Triple H and Shawn Michaels along the way. Shawn coming out, followed by Triple H, who was delayed by a late flight. And surprisingly, there was a contract signing with very little physicality. Usually there's some sort of physicality that occurs with a contract signing, but of course the physicality happened a little bit later as both Shawn and Heyman were trying to leave the building. They got into a bit of a fender bender, and as Shawn leaned out of his car window to yell at Heyman, Brock Lesnar snuck up on him, put him in some sort of a lock, beat him up out in the parking lot, and then proceeded to carry him to the ring, where he locked on that Kimura lock, forcing Triple H to come out. Heyman, meanwhile, being the instigator that he is on the microphone, saying, "Don't come any closer, he'll break his arm." And then, next thing you know, Lesnar snaps back on the arm, and looks like Michaels is out of being in Triple H's corner in the main event at SummerSlam. Triple H against Brock Lesnar. WWE.com has said that Michaels, because of that broken arm, will not be at ringside. Although, we're due for any kind of a surprise, as a lot of the listeners on the Facebook feedback have said. Joseph chiming in saying, "I see an HBK heel turn against Triple H." Could be possible. I don't know if they're going to go away from the broken arm angle necessarily. Dan from Chicago chiming in, "I think Brock will beat Triple H with the help of HBK." Interesting. Jericho will beat Dolph Ziggler. That's another interesting one. And then Ziggler will cash in later to become the world champion. Something I hadn't thought about, of course, with that Money in the Bank briefcase. It is possible at any time, but I have a hunch that Ziggler might wait until a more physically and taxing pay-per-view main event match, possibly Hell in a Cell in October, to cash in, or even waiting until the Elimination Chamber in February, perhaps, so that way he can be part of one of the WrestleMania main events, which will probably open the card, as is wont to do when it comes to the world title, kind of the redheaded stepchild of the WWE as far as world titles are concerned. We'll have more of your Facebook feedback coming in the third segment, but for now, I want to present to you my interview that I had a little over a month ago with Jerry Saggs and Brian Knobbs, former WWE and WCW Tag Team Champions, the Nasty Boys. 1490 WBCB, we're here at George's Cards and Collectibles talking with Knobbs and Saggs, the Nasty Boys. And first of all, great to have you both here. Let's go back a little bit, and this is something I was kind of curious about. Where did the idea of the Nasty Boys come from?
Well, it didn't sort of come from us. We were looking for tag team names. You know, we wanted to be a tag team. We were really into tag team wrestling and stuff like that. And it happened one night when we went out with, we were wrestling for Vern Gagne, and we went out with his daughter, Donna. And, you know, after that night out, the next day, she says, "You know what, you guys are really some nasty boys." And she said, "That, you know what, that would actually be a good name for you guys." And we went, ding. And then from that day on, that's what we were. And it just so happened at the time, it was 85, about 86, and the Janet Jackson song "Nasty Boys" came out. So we thought we developed a gimmick around it, and it really was us. So unlike today, where there's, you know, it's more black and white, we were in the age of more creative gimmicks and stuff like that. And for us, it was a gimmick, but it was really us. That was our character. That's how it came out. That's when the gimmicks is the greatest, is when it is really you know.
I've heard that on a few different occasions, that the best characters tend to be the wrestler with their personality turned up to 11, I think is the quote.
Well, you know, back when we were wrestling, you got Macho Man, you got Hogan, you got, you know, the Road Warriors. All them guys were an extension of themselves. Nowadays, they've like trying to put, you know, something on somebody or a writer's writing for you, how can a writer write for you if you don't really know what you're about? So, it was, like you said, these guys are all extensions of themselves. Jake the Snake, Rick Martel, all these guys were, great wrestlers, but also extensions to themselves of that's how they were inside. You know what I mean? That's, Hawk was a bad, MF and, was a kick-ass guy, and it showed in his wrestling, so was Animal. So, the Steiner brothers, the same thing. But today they got more away from that. They're having, has to do, everything changes, but with the big, more corporate, you got the writers writing for people. I think it hurts the wrestler, the individual wrestler, for them being themselves and their character, of who they really are.
I know we were talking a little bit before we started recording here, kind of a little bit of a shared interest type thing. The first event that I actually ever went back and watched, you were supposed to be on, and you guys got bumped off of back at WrestleMania 9. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, we went to. We didn't know, or it wasn't in stone, but we were expecting sort of to be able to wrestle for the titles that night, and I think we were on the maybe the back burner, so to speak. If Terry and Brutus didn't do it, or were in negotiations, who knows? But anyway, the long story short, we got replaced by them, or at the very last minute. And that it was sort of upsetting, but what it is what it is. And then so Hulk Hogan and Brutus won the tag belts, and then Hulk Hogan beat Yokozuna and won the World Heavyweight title. So we were like, what in the hell, So what? I don't know why. I think it had to do more with Terry wanted nothing to do with it. I knew about the tag situation. I think that had to do more with involving Brutus Beefcake in something at the time, because that was after his injury, wasn't it? He got in an accident, and he was trying to come back to wrestling, and I think it was more Terry trying to help out Brutus and in any which way he could, and that meant sacrifice us. So it ain't the first time we got screwed over. We've been to pawns and a chessboard all through our wrestling career, so I took it with a grain of salt. And later on,
sure, Money Inc. Enjoyed wrestling Hulk and Brutus better, because when you wrestled Hulk, you got the big money. So if you're wrestling Hulk Hogan at a WrestleMania, the paycheck's up there. So I'm pretty sure they're thrilled that they didn't have to wrestle Nasty Boys, plus probably IRS and DiBiase getting their ass kicked too out there at the same time. So they were probably really glad.
Absolutely. You mentioned, not that I want to throw too many people under the bus. What other, give me some examples of being, as you said, pawns on a chessboard.
Oh, just the instances in the wrestling business, that stuff that happens to you, you know what I mean? And that's just one instance that you brought up there, you know what I mean? And along with it could happen to you every day or once a month or whatever. But in the business part, the end of it itself, it's always like some way or in some size or some form you get screwed over at one point in time, or many points in times, put it that way.
I guess that's why they say card subject to change. Talking with Knobs and Sags, the Nasty Boys, great tag team from back in the 80s and 90s and even into the early 2000s. Looking back in your career thus far, I should say, did you have a particular favorite opponent, somebody that you like to wrestle, whether it was somebody you like to beat up on or somebody who gave you a good fight?
Well, it always goes back to one of our most memorable matches was WrestleMania 7 against the Hart Foundation, and that's what really put us on the map. WrestleMania 7, we won the WWF Tag Team Championships off the, Bret Hart and Jim the Anvil Neidhart, and that kind of stamped our legacy of, hey man, these guys are for real, and, you're out there. And like I said, there's the Super Bowl of wrestling is WrestleMania, and anytime you can go for a championship match, on that extreme, and then actually win the belts. It was definitely a big thing in our lives.
If I remember right, the next year, weren't you involved in an 8-man tag match at WrestleMania 8?
Yes, we were involved in an 8-man tag. It was me, Sag the Mountie, and the good old Repo Man. And we went against Virgil and Hacksaw Jim Duggan and Sergeant Slaughter and the Big Boss Man. So, and Ray Combs, who's not here no more, that did Family Feud, he kind of announced us. But that was good. That was, I think, 69,000, 70,000 at the RCA Dome.
Yes, in Indianapolis. Any Ray Combs stories? I know he's a bit of a funny guy. Well, yeah, he was when he was around. Any backstage stories on him?
You know what? I became a good friend of his, and when I used to go out to L.A., I'd go out and we go out to the comedy stores, and he was one funny man, bro. He was really a good guy. It was a shame to see him go like he did.
I'm trying to think back, and I'm pretty good with my game shows. Were you guys on The Feud at all when? Well,
I was on the Family Feud, and I went for the big money with Bobby the Brain, and I got actually 8 points. I couldn't remember the first question. Second question was, what do you do? A piece of equipment, a gymnast uses it. I said tennis racket. What do you do on a cruise ship? I said swim. I was so out of my element. Bobby the Brain walked out, saw I got 8 points, turned around and walked right back and walked off stage. I mean, but yeah, I was on Family Feud twice. Once with the WCW, once with the WWF.
That had to have been an interesting experience, to say the least. Talking with former WCW and World Wrestling Federation Tag Team Champions, the Nasty Boys. Talk a little bit about WCW. Obviously, you'd moved over in the mid-'90s. What was the climate? I know I've heard stories from all different types of folks. People have been writing books about it. What were your experience in WCW like?
I actually really liked wrestling in WCW. When we were there in the late 80s, before we went to WWE, in the time we had one of our biggest breakthrough matches with the Steiner brothers, and it came to a head at Halloween Havoc. And I loved the style of wrestling there, and I loved what it was about. I liked the work schedule and everything about it. But there was only one place you could go, though, to really make your mark worldwide and be at the top of your game in professional wrestling. Of course, that was the WWF at the time, WWE now, and it still is. But yeah, when we went back when we were still wrestling, the name of the game wasn't to get in a company and stay there for 50 years because there was other places to go. Now the guys, the name of the game is get in there and never leave. So then I think that's a problem with wrestling right now, that the guys have been revamped and they seem the same thing over, and the same guys doing the same thing over and over again. Back when we were wrestling, you go in somewhere for a year to 2 to 3 years, and you'd go to WCW, to Japan, to another territory, and then when you came back again, you were fresh again, But we made that transition well, and had great matches and great fun. And working for Ted Turner was an awesome place to work back in the day. I really enjoyed it.
Talking with Knobs and Sags, the Nasty Boys, here on Pro Wrestling Weekly on 1490 WBCB. Just about wrapping up. I got one last curious question. I know you guys are billed, of course, from Allentown, and this is kind of like I said, a locality type question. How many times have you guys been to Dorney Park?
Man, I haven't been to Dorney Park in a long time, but we used to go there all the time. That was our old stomping grounds, man. That used to be the greatest roller coaster, that old wooden one. But man, it's still a good time. But I haven't been back to Dorney Park in at least 20 years, and that was always fun.
I think the wooden one that you're referring to, Thunderhawk, that's still up there.
Yeah, I heard it is. The yellow one, and it was always scary, but man, it was always, that first tip was always a doozy, But now they said they have some badass roller coasters and stuff, so I haven't been there, though. I haven't been there in about 20 years. When was the last time you were to Dorney Park?
I don't know. When the kids were little, maybe in the 90s,
You took the kids there?
Yeah, I did. That's a great old park, though. There were from the old waffle cones to the old roller coasters and all that stuff. I know they did try to upgrade it, but I don't know what's been done since I've been there. I see it, but I haven't been there in a while.
Like we say, it's always good coming back to the area because we're from here. Because, there's good people here. And that's why when we come home, like we're doing this charity event for Andre Reed. He went to high school, and he was in a different high school than me and Sag, but we all grew up together, and he played for the Bills, of course, but we're going to do this charity event for the Boys and Girls Club, and it's just good. The radio guy was saying, you guys always come back and try to give back, and that's what you got to do. There's a lot of good people around this area. We grew up around here, being Philly fans, Eagle fans, and it's just good to come back home and see the good people around here, and they still recognize us, and they still are very nice to us and treat us with with respect. So, the fans are cool, man. We really like it around this area.
We certainly appreciate it. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute treat. Knobs and Sags, of course, the Nasty Boys, former WCW Tag Team Champions, WWE Tag Team Champions back when it was the Federation days. A lot of accolades, certainly a classic tag team.
Well, thank you very much. We might have to get Pity City before we leave.
Oh, goodness, I'm out of here.
Come on over. Get over here.
There you have it, Knobs and Sags, the Nasty Boys. It was certainly an interesting time talking to them. Thankfully, I got away before I got hit with Pity City. I have to admit, I love that story from Family Feud. Longtime listeners know I'm a big game show buff, so the experience on the Feud, of course, I wanted to delve into that a little bit. And who knew that they were big roller coaster fans at Dorney Park? Who'd have thunk that? Or at least Knobs certainly was. He was adamant. He almost beamed the moment that I mentioned that. Certainly kind of interesting. More great stuff coming up. I've got the Total Package, Lex Luger, more of your Facebook feedback. And, of course, tomorrow, George's Cards and Collectibles at Oxford Valley Mall. Matt Hardy and Shelly Martinez from 1 to 3 o'clock. For information or advance tickets, you can call 215-943-2475 or log on to georgescollectibles.com. Lex Luger coming up on the other side. This is Pro Wrestling Weekly here on 1490 WBCB and online at WBCB1490.com.